Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Champions of Wellness podcast. Um, I know it's been a little while, but we're trying to pick things back up again with the weekly podcast and bring you guys some more information. Just to give you a quick update of where we're at, me and Joshin just started our physical therapy school. This has been our first semester this summer, actually. So we're learning a lot right now, and what we're trying to do is share to you guys what we've seen in class and bridge some of the things that we've talked about on other podcasts to give you guys some new and good information to take with you.
Yeah, we're excited to run into this topic today about fascia. We've come in contact with cadavers in cadaver lab, and we've got to see up close what it really looks like and what's in between our tissues and what really helps our body functions. And also, I wanted to say that I have an Instagram as well, which talks about nutrition and shows healthy eating and food, as well as sunlight and grounding. So if you wanted to check that out, it's uh, Joshan, joshancoin.healing your way. So you can check that out, and you'll see a bunch of things that you can implement into your daily living.
Yeah, and like you said, today's topic is about fascia. I'm sure some of you have heard it before, but we're really going to go into um, how it's so much more than what people think. Um, and just to start off, I guess, fascia is this kind of three-dimensional web of connective tissue that is there to kind of give support and encase a lot of the structures in our body. There are a few different layers to it that we'll be getting into, but the main ones you should know are the superficial layer, which is kind of comprised of fat, loose connective tissue, just beneath the skin, and then we have our deeper layers of fascia that kind of encase our muscles and connect the superficial fascia to the deep.
And how I would describe it as, like if you see, well, when we see in cadaver lab, right under the skin, it's kind of like a spider web, and it's all these little fibers that course throughout our whole network throughout our whole body. So it kind of it sends signals and also gives a lot of functions which we're doing every day.
And so, like we said, what is fascia? And the definition we have here for you is it's a continuous three-dimensional web of connective tissue that envelops, supports, and connects every single structure in your body, including muscles, organs, nerve, blood vessels, and so much more. And what I want you guys to know, it's not just this structural component. It actually is something dynamic and that is acting and feeding off of every living sensory and communicative organ or system. And it's kind of this piece that is interconnected between, like I just said, our muscles, organs, and nerves. And it's transmitting um, energy, electrical signals, and is our main way of communicating from you know one part of our body to to the other. For example, what's going on in my head can actually be influencing what's going on in my feet, and vice versa. Um, all of our body parts are interconnected through this web-like structure of fascia, and it has so many properties that allow it to be able to be that medium, that connection between all the organs we have.
And it also gives way to a lot of senses. You might feel pain, which is called nociception. Mechanoreceptors are have to doing with the touch that you feel. Say you feel a fly going onto your skin. Uh, Fascia has a lot to do with your sensing of that fly touching you, as well as a lot of other senses that you're feeling in your body.
Yeah, and one of the other key aspects that fascia has is immune cells. So if you've heard of something like mast cell activation syndrome. That's through the fascia. Our fascia contains immune cells that are able to respond and induce inflammation. And sometimes, for those folks who have mast cell syndrome, um, their inflammation may be rather chronic, or their immune cells might be triggered off of things that are not actually attacking their body, but their body is just sensing it um, as a form of threat. Therefore, the fascia is being altered because it has so many of these different properties, such as being something that's tensile, but also containing immune cells in it. And another key aspect of fascia is that if it forms the basis of something called biotensegrity, and biotensegrity is pretty much our body's ability to balance tension and compression, which creates strength, flexibility, and the resilience of our body. And sometimes when our fascia is not healthy, this messes with the biotensegrity component of it, and that causes a bunch of other things to go downward for a lot of people. So, what is fascia made of? Well, I'm just going to go over some of the different cell components or cell types that is included in fascia. So, fascia at the cellular level includes um, these things called fibroblasts, and the main function of the fibroblasts in the cell are to produce and maintain um, the matrix or the web-like structure, and that goes into fasciocytes, which generate hyaluronic acid. And the reason hyaluronic acid is so important is because it's very hydrating. I think it's around can hold up 1,000 times its capacity in water. So it has a really good um, ability to bind and hold water, which hydrates um, our fascial matrix.
And it also gives a lubricating feel to our tissues so that it can glide and move a lot quicker than it would be without it. So hyaluronic acid is a crucial part of our tissues.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably heard of hyaluronic acid used in a lot of skincare for folks with dry skin. And the reason it's used, from what I've heard, is because of its ability to be so hydrating. But this is actually also a super major component in our fascia. Our fascia needs to be hydrated properly in order to stay buoyant, elastic, and healthy at the end of the day. And moving on to some other cell components, we have myofibroblasts. Um, myo meaning muscle, so this is for contraction and force transmission. And like I said, a lot of our deep fascia surrounds or encapsulates our muscles. So that's that bridge point between the fascia and the muscle. And like I also said before, we have mast cells, which are linked to immune responses, such as in mast cell activation syndrome, as well as stem cells for repair. And
And
next we have, oh, go ahead.
I also wanted to say that there is something called a mast cell flare up, and it is when your mast cells start to flare up due to some immune response. Um, as you can see on my face right here, there is some mast cells that were building up a week ago, and I had a flare up, which is still happening throughout my throat area and my face area, and I realized that my gut was actually very inflamed, and it has to do with all the things that I've been eating before. And I really tried to dial in my diet as well as focusing on doing the right things like getting my sunlight and grounding. All of these things together, if you stack them, you can heal a lot quicker. I've been getting acupuncture as well, and the inflammation has been going down. So sometimes you can get flare ups like this. Mine is a little longer than maybe usual. I've had this before, but on my leg area, but having it near the face and the throat is has been calming down recently. So if you stay sticking to your diet and eating healthy, you can get rid of things like mast cell flare-ups.
Yeah, and like in making sure you do all of those components is gonna make your fascia a lot much more healthy. And I guess probably the uh, things Joshin is doing right now is definitely helping him out. And later, I'll actually be talking a little bit about how some different techniques, such as acupuncture and EFT, actually are really beneficial for our fascia because of its piezoelectric um, aspects to it. But before I get there, I'm just gonna go back where we were with the other components of fascia. So we went through all the cellular components. Uh, Now moving on to the matrix. The matrix mainly made of collagen, which and a few different types of collagen, and basically all the collagen's role is to provide that strength and flexibility of the fascia because it's something that needs to be pliable and movable and kind of give us a good amount of recoil to be connected in between. And it's organized in multiple layers and different angles so that forces are transmitted in the best way possible or most efficient way possible. And the
And to
last,
main and to maintain the strength of your tissues, like you said in collagen, which is the type 1, you can drink bone broth, which is high in collagen, and you can strengthen your tissues by something as simple as drinking bone broth in the morning, breaking your fast, and you can do this throughout the whole week.
yeah, definitely recommend that. If I would think that's probably one of the best things you can start right now. It's good to drink in the morning, probably a good replacer for your coffee instead of opting for some caffeine. Opt for maybe some hot bone broth in the morning, and I think you'll notice you'll feel a lot better. Actually, when I was trying to come off of caffeine and my caffeine addiction, bone broth was my main substitute in the morning, and I noticed I felt a much lighter and smoother energy from drinking the bone broth than the caffeine had ever given me before. And lastly, the last component that we have in our fascia is ground substance and water. The water, like I said before, is mainly being bound by that hyaluronic acid as it can bind up to 1,000 times its weight in water, which is pretty significant. And what this ground substance and water does is create this hydrated gel like component, which allows for many things to happen, like nutrient transport, waste removal, gliding between the layers, and as well as piezoelectric capabilities as well. So, this is kind of the cool stuff and some of the things that you may have never heard about fascia before. So, fascia acts as a liquid crystal matrix, um, and this is probably one of its most significant properties. And one of the books that I've kind of been looking at and not been fully able to read, but I've dabbled in a little bit, is called The Genie in Your Genes by Dawson Church. Um, and this man kind of describes our fascia um, as a connective tissue that's a liquid crystal semiconductor. And I know we talked about semiconductors on uh, the water uh, podcast and how we talked about melanin being a semiconductor, meaning that it conducts electricity um, with like low grade currents. So not something significant, but for our body, it's acting like this electrical signal that transfers energy from one end to the other. And it rapidly conducts energy and information throughout our entire body. So, like I said before, what's going on at one end of our body is directly influencing what's happening at the other end. And this is through the piezoelectric effect. The piezoelectric effect pretty much is the ability of your fascia to create uh, electron potentials, which are caused by when you move, stretch, or compress any parts of the fascia. And even though you don't think of it, all of these compressions or different movements that are happening to your fascia, that those are actually sending signals that are influencing things like immune cell response, gene expression, and how your tissue remodels itself. So if your fascia is healthy, you can exhibit good gene expression, meaning that you're expressing proteins in a healthy way that your body needs and not turning off essential things from being made, and that you're not having immune flare-ups like mast cell syndrome when you don't need to be. Mast cell mast cells should only be released in the immune response when there is an actual threat to the body, not when there is a proposed threat that is actually not even a threat to begin with. And when the body gets like hypersensitive because it's being given all these external signals that may be not the healthiest, it starts to try to protect itself. And in the end, the body ends up fighting itself through these immune cells.
And also, I wanted to say before that mast cells are not a really bad thing. They can look bad, but in the long term, it is telling your body and is telling you that something is wrong. Something that is going on in your body, which you should be changing. Maybe you're drinking too much caffeine. Maybe you're having too much blue light later in the day. You got to find out which is the problem that you need to address and go about one by one.
Yeah, I agree. And implementing all the things that we talked about will definitely be a good first start to, start making your fascia much more buoyant and much more healthy for you. Because at the end of the day, like I've been saying, it's the thing that's bridging uh the gap between all the different systems in your body. So if you don't have that good web of sending one signal to the other, you're going to screw up your entire body. So it's not just going to affect one area, it's going to affect all areas. And next, what I have is, I already said they exhibit a piezoelectric effect, but the aligned collagen fibers combined with the hyaluronic acid, which bound to structured water, creates this liquid crystal like properties. So it's a mix between kind of a gel and a crystal like structure. And I know we talked about structured water on the water podcast, and this goes hand in hand with that. Your fascia also needs to have this structured water formation for uh, it to operate efficiently. And if you remember what I said about structured water, it creates this kind of a negative side and a positive side, which creates a difference in voltage, which creates like a drive for energy. It's channeling energy much faster and much more efficient. And that's exactly what your fascia needs to be doing. So your fascia is where this structured water component becomes super, super important. And the semiconductor network allows almost instantaneous communication across the body. So everything in your body is going on efficiently, and there's nothing wasted, and there's nothing happening um, out of the ordinary or in an unhealthy way. Go to the next one. Did you go to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So fascia and dehydration. So, like I said, uh, in order to have healthy fascia, you need to be properly hydrated, and ideally with the best sources of hydration that you can get. Um, the best source, like I said, is the deuterium depleted water. I know that's like rather hard to get. There are some options online where you can get bottles. They're a little more on the expensive side, but if you can start to implement uh, maybe a few bottles uh, as you need, this can definitely improve the overall health and wellness of your fascia and how it holds water, because we need it to hold water in order to be able to conduct electricity um, at its most efficiency. And like I said, healthy fascia equals high water content, so you can have an easy glide and efficient fluid exchange. Um, wait, go back a little bit. So if I want you to look on the right and look at the consequences of fascial dehydration. So when we have this loss of glide with our fascia, we have adhesions, restrictions, and reduced range of motion. So our fascia becomes tight when it's dehydrated, and we're not able to move as freely and like we want to. A lot of people may start to experience pain in these regions because their fascia is not healthy. You may have stiffness, morning rigidity, increased in injury risk. You also may have impaired interstitial fluid, which creates a poor nutrient delivery and waste removal, which is not what we want. We want our body to be on top of all of these processes. You'll have reduced piezoelectric signaling and bioelectric communication. So, all of the signals that are going on between our muscles, organs, nerves, things like that are not being optimized. And lastly, we have amplified symptoms in a lot of these autonomic disorders that we see today, including POTS, EDS, mast cell activation syndrome, and chronic pain.
And when you talk about dehydration, making sure you're having the right supplements like sodium, potassium, and magnesium when you incorporate them in your water, like having an electrolyte drink, that's especially helpful when you're going to exercise or when you're talking about just hydrating your fascia.
So now we're moving on to fascia, muscle, and biotensegrity, like I said before. So force transmission, fascia transmits a force across multiple muscle chains or levels, and one contraction affects distant areas. So if you have a force contraction in your arm, that's going to impact the way the force distributes in the rest of your muscles. It has that recoil effect. Biotensegrity as well, which is, like I said, the balanced tension between your fascia tendons and your bones for structural integrity and even load distribution. And if you don't have this, um, some joints will be more susceptible to injury than others because the force is not being evenly distributed. Then we have efficiency and coordination. We need that proper glide and optimal recruitment of our muscles and power to ensure that we're moving in the most efficient way. And any restrictions within our fascia are going to impair us in being able to move properly. Excuse me. And this goes hand in hand with the point we have right after, which is the importance with injury prevention and recovery. And if we have resilient, healthy fascia, we're not going to be as prone and susceptible to injury um, as if we had unhealthy fascia. So we want to be doing all of these other interventions that can help us um, create the best possible fat and healthy fascia as well. That's why Mentastics is such a great practice because it plays into all of the key components that you can see on this slide. We're going through different movements that are generating fluid, easy, um, and light flowness so that our body and our fascia is able to adapt and become resilient and buoyant. And so that we can access these different ranges of motion. And these mentastic practices are actually able to help loosen and even hydrate our fascia because we're influencing that piezoelectric effect and the healthiness of all of the cells and tissues in there.
And if you're able to do mentastics in the morning, doing it at the start of your day is especially a good way to loosen your body and start to hydrate your fascia. And instead of stretching, you might get injured by stretching earlier in the day because your body's so locked up. But doing something easy and free flowing, like mentastics, is a good way to start your body right.
So I want to take a quick moment to talk about our sponsors for this video. Oil Divine is an amazing place where you can get a bunch of different oil-based skincare. And just looking at their motto, it's when beauty meets nature. So they used 100% vegan, organic, and cruelty-free ingredients, which are toxin-free, preservative-free, and hormone safe. So it's not going to include any of those PFAs or other hormone like or hormone like substances that will mess with um, your body. Also, they are backed by science based formulas and ancient herbal remedies as well, which will help nourish the skin, hair, and soul with the nature's finest oils. And I can attest to Oil Divine because I used some of their products and saw immediate benefit. My favorite one from the line so far, I would have to say, is the vitamin C oil, which is used for brightening skin tone and correcting dark spots. And I noticed probably within the first 3 times of applying it that some of my dark spots from like hyperpigmentation were almost fully gone within the first 3 days of applying it. And after I've been using it consistency, I just noticed that my skin is a much higher quality than before. And I don't feel any irritation or feel any um, issues at all with applying this daily.
And what I use from regular basis from them is the charcoal cleanser and the vitamin C serum, like you said, without having the mast cell flare up. I use them on a regular basis. But the vitamin C serum really helps my skin feel soft and supple as well as keep it very hydrated. When I'm going in the morning, I usually apply it and go about my day, and I feel like it's throughout the whole day it stays hydrated and it feels like I have like a kind of glowing feel to it. And when I use the charcoal cleanser, it's not something that's going to really dry out your skin like a lot of the other cleansers do at the store with a lot of kind of cheap ingredients inside. And there's a lot of chemicals that are damaging to your skin. So the charcoal cleanser really just helps keep it hydrated, but also takes away all the things that you want to take away with leaving the good bacteria and the good substances.
And as you can see here, here are some of the signature collections from Oil Divine, and we have the pricings listed below. So please check them out. You can see the little descriptions of which each of them are used for. And just know this is an award-winning brand. They've done amazing things for so many people um, in a natural and healthy way with the best ingredients possible. 100% vegan, 100% organic, as they should be. So please go to their website and check them out at oildivine.com, where you can explore the full collection. And why Oil Divine? Already went through most of the points here, but we believe that radiance comes from within. Their vegan, organic, and all natural products are designed to nourish your body with the purest, richest oil ingredients that nature has to offer. It's pure, proven, and conscious. And if you're looking for some new skincare products, if your current skincare products just aren't doing it for you, and you need a healthier, more organic opportunity with the highest quality ingredients, then look no further than Oil Divine. And since there are sponsors, we have a promo code for you guys right here, which is HYWCOW. And you will receive a free gift on all orders $50 and more online or in store when you use our promo code. And you can shop the Oil Divine line. You can shop the other non toxic organic products that they have there from lines outside of the Oil Divine line, and you can shop non-toxic plant-based cleaning products as well as the skincare products that they have there.
Yeah, and whoever goes and uses the promo code, let us know how it works for you. Let us know how the oils really affected your skin and how it makes a change in your life.
Joshua, can you actually go back to the fascia as a crystal matrix, because I want to hit another few points that I've missed a little bit. So going back to the piezoelectric effect, um, I've talked about that already, but what I did not mention is how fascia holds and interacts with light. So what I want you to know is this web-like structure is fiber optic like our internet. The collagen transmits photons and light, which impulses rapidly through the hydrated network. So it really is this fiber optic like network that is operating inside of us. And biophotons and SHG um, allow the fascia to emit and respond to ultra weak biophotons, which um, from uh, I think his name is last name is Pop. He did an experiment where we were actually able to observe um, the ultra weak biophotons emission from our tissues, showing that we ourselves are actually light beings and interact with all levels of light, whether it's indoor light or light from the sun, and that it's really important on which lights we're being in contact with on a regular basis. We want to be in contact with um, the best the best sources of light possible, and the best one, obviously, as we've been preaching, is the sun. That's why you need to get out there in the morning, because you're charging this fiber optic like network in your body. You're creating a stronger exclusion zone for these impulses to travel more rapidly um, and faster and stronger. And that's why red light therapy is also very helpful, because it's influencing our fascia through light therapy in order to make it more hydrated and more optimal. Also, infrared interaction is a crucial component as well, because infrared light builds structured water, changes the matrix, and enhances energy transfer. And that's why if you use infrared socks or infrared or materials that can induce infrared heat to the body, they are much more healing and much more better for any injuries that you've sustained. For example, I had a pretty severe ankle injury 3 weeks ago playing basketball, and This obviously was something pretty traumatic. I sprained my ankle coming off of a rebound, actually, and my ankle was purple like tuna the next day. That's what one of my friends called it. He called it my ankle looking like tuna, just to show you the severity of it. And it was really hard to walk, super painful. But one of the things my mom actually had bought for me was an ankle support or ankle compression that had um, materials that were able to reflect infrared heat from my body and back into my tissue. And what that did is it gave much more oxygen supply and better grounds for healing of my fascia and muscles in that region. So when you have an injury localized in a certain joint or a certain spot, making use of things like um, infrared compressions or copper compressions are really going to help the fascia um, heal in a healthy way possible. And what ended up happening is that 3 weeks later, which is pretty much right now, am almost up to 80 or 90% recovery. And I've had friends in the past who've had um, ankle sprains just as bad, and they were wearing the brace for um, months, a few months on it, and I've been able to recover in weeks. So just to show that comparison between months and weeks, just using an infrared compress is kind of amazing. So really take advantage of things like that, and hopefully we're going to be working on some products for you guys that make use of your body's own infrared heat and also the piezoelectric effect as well.
And we also have a comment from the chat. Sounds like oils are good for fascia.
Yeah, oils are definitely really good for fascia. One, because you have that superficial layer right under the skin, so you're supplying really good nutrients through the skin right to that layer of fascia, and it's providing encapsulation and really good support to that entire network. Um, I I wouldn't say that it's directly um, made out of fascia, but excuse me, that it directly supports the components of fascia, but it does supply um, good nutrients to all the surrounding parts that help um, build healthy fascia.
And also, I heard that it can also hold light very well when you were talking about light and how it interacts with fascia. So if you apply oils like Oil Divine has, you can have a lot healthier network in your body with the fascia.
And this is where I'm going to talk about how things like acupuncture and EFT are really able to help um, issues related to fascia. And that's because of these nerve types called C fiber nerves. And what C fiber nerves are is they're unmyelinated, slow conducting nociceptors, which nociception is pretty much pain, your sensation of pain, which is responsible for aching, burning, and persistent pain, which a lot of people with chronic conditions actually have. And these C fiber nerves are richly embedded within and surrounded by fascia. And when these nerves are affected, or when our fascia tightens or compresses these nerves, it triggers uh, ectopic firing, peripheral sensitization, and neuroinflammation, which induces things like I said before, mast cell activation and referred pain patterns. So basically, when fascia is unhealthy, it's affecting and compressing these nerves, which are causing the root of the pain that you have, that dull, achy pain that a lot of people with these chronic conditions have and are not able to be relieved from. And the reason things like acupuncture and tapping from EFT work so well is it's because it's um, taking advantage of key piezoelectric points in the body. We have these different piezoelectric points in the body where we can actually be able to loosen the fascia and affect the piezoelectricity of those points. So you may have heard of acupoints. They they are these piezoelectric points that are used by inserting the needle. And what the needle does is it gives that extra stimulus to the fascia in order to complete the contraction cycle and therefore finally loosen up and release. We want our fascia to be loose and buoyant, not stiff, um, dehydrated, and tight. We want it to be loose and really liquid, really gel like, and just really buoyant. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of these different issues like C5 or nerve compression. And EFT works in the same way because now you're adding um, an emotional component to it. You're relieving stress and anxiety and letting go of things on an emotional perspective, as well as by tapping in those certain piezoelectric point locations. So you're um, kind of tackling two in one with that. And that's going to provide you with such an emotional release, which is then going to affect your fascia. So fascia can be influenced in many, many ways on an emotional level, and on a physical level. And yeah, you can go back down to where we were at right after the ad break. Um, s- I'm just gonna catch up 1 second. Okay, so kind of going back to where we were at after I switched the discussion back to piezoelectricity. So here are some of fascia's roles in pain and myofascial restriction. So there's this syndrome called myofascial pain syndrome, which I'm sure some of you have heard from before. Um, and pretty much what happens is people have these trigger points or taut bands in the muscle and fascia, which causes referred pain along these fascial lines. And this reduces glide and creates local ischemia and inflammation to our tissue. And this is really uncomfortable and really annoying and painful for individuals, and it really affects the integrity and healthiness of our fascia. And by doing the different interventions that we've been talking about through this episode, um, and all this time in our other videos as well, are really good ways to help reduce something like myofascial pain syndrome or any other um, disorders caused by unhealthy fascia. So, how restrictions develop is through in things like um, things or trauma such as injury, surgery, poor posture, repetitive strain, and inflammation. It also develops through dehydrated fibrotic ground substance, which loses lubrication. So that's why I paired the ground substance and water together because that creates that hydrated gel like substance that is supposed to be very lubricated and buoyant. And stress and guarding perpetuates or continues the cycle. That's why I'm just going to say it again. Things like meditation, mentastics, a lot of the different modalities that we practice and have at Healing Your Way are really good for addressing and ending this perpetuate cycle of unhealthy and stiff and tight fascia. And they're really good practices to implement. The impact on the nervous system. Fascia is richly innervated, like I said, especially by those C fiber nerves, and it sensitizes nociception or pain. And altered proprioception affects our motor control and pain. So when our proprioceptors, which are responsible for where our body is or our perception of our body is in space and time, if it's altered, we're gonna see these motor control and pain problems arise. And chronic restrictions also contribute to central sensitization. And finally, like I've said already, there's so much room for therapeutic opportunity and growth in healthy fascia through myofascial release, manual therapy, cupping, movement through things like mentastic, hydration break adhesions, and fascia focused care often outperforms isolated muscle work. So, doing strength training and doing um, things like sports and things that are stressing the body are going to be good, but they're not really going to address our fascia, which needs to be taken care of because it's such a crucial and component that's interconnected between almost everything. So you have to pay attention to the healthiness and integrity of your fascia.
A lot of times, every day we're going through at high intensity. We're going and giving all the effort we can, but going back and slowing down, uh, at least getting manual therapy or something like that every 2 weeks or every once a week is good. Uh, Trigger is a lot that you can do with loosening your body and the fascia within. Throughout the whole session, you'll feel a lot more supple and easier on your body. It's a good way to release a lot of the tensions that you have built up through those 100% activities.
So moving on to expanding it further, the discussion further clinically. So unhealthy fascia can affect these disorders such as EDS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, POTS, and dysautonomia, which are becoming more and more prominent in the modern society. So just going over it one by one, what each are so you have an understanding. EDS is where collagen defects make the fascial network more fragile and prone to micro tears. So these people may have frequent joint dislocations. Um, they are more susceptible to injuries. They um, uh, don't are not able to generate as much force without damaging their joints and tissues when doing any kind of sport or resistance training or any high impact activity. So these guys are really, or this population is really susceptible to all of these types of injuries to happen.
And
And
I'm also someone that has EDS and has a certain version where I feel like when I do those activities, I feel like my muscles and tissues are stretching more than they should be. Sometimes I get injured more easily than others doing the sports that I do. Um, Definitely incorporating all the manual therapies is going to help with your fascia and also reduce what's going on due to the EDS. I think being more aware of it is something that you should be focused on instead of ignoring it. Definitely not being afraid of doing those activities, like doing the sports you do, basketball, soccer, whatever it may be. Definitely don't be scared, but be aware and do something that will help you in the long run.
well, also, I guess it depends too because the severity is different for people in EDS. Some people really cannot even participate in any level of sport without experiencing some type of injury. And I know it feels like super exhausting. And every time you go out, you're just maybe having a joint dislocation or something of that sort happening. And it probably seems really, really frustrating. And what I would suggest is um, really start sun gazing, making sure that you're well hydrated, make sure you're eating the correct foods, not inducing um, inflammation to the body because that inflammation happens in our fascia, and that you're doing all of the right things that we preach because that is just going to give you a much better advantage regardless of um, what you have going on with the EDS. And next, we have mast cell activation syndrome. These mast cells are densely embedded in the fascia and connective tissue. Fascial inflammation or restrictions can trigger degranulation. Mast cell mediators promote fibrosis and alter our fascia in a negative way sometimes when this activation is chronic. And breaking inflammation fibrosis cycle via fascial care is really going to help reduce mast cell activation syndrome when it is happening chronically or when it doesn't need to. Because, like we said, mast cells are not bad. They're there for your body's immune response, but some people have this chronically activated because their fascia is unhealthy.
And there's a lot of things that are happening in your gut that can cause inflammation, whether the mast cells show up on your face or on your stomach. It is showing you where the issue is. Say that they are on your stomach. It is definitely something that's inflaming your gut, and you need to avoid things that heat up your body, like something like ginger is actually very good for you. But when you have mast cell activation syndrome, ginger might be something that you want to stay away from. Definitely gluten and fried foods are not good for you when you have this. It can only make the inflammation worse as your gut reflects what is going on. And you can also have a lot of things that are cooling and hydrating, eating watermelon or having teas that are actually going to cool your body. And one thing that's helped a lot is having acupuncture. For me, I've had acupuncture very recently to reduce the inflammation that's on my face and my throat area, and it's helped a lot doing with my father doing the cooling points on my body, and definitely being aware of it is important. So making sure you're consuming the right foods at the right times is good.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said, if your fascia is embedded in almost everything. So if your gut is messed up, then that's going to translate to every single other part of your body. So you have to start thinking that everything is connected because it actually is. So if one part of your body is not responding or in the way you want to or is not feeling right, please look in other parts. Are you eating the right things? Are you hydrated enough? Because those questions also, although they might be rather simple, are probably the most important ones that you need to be asking yourself.
And also drinking bone broth and as well as having a zinc, something with zinc in it. There's a topical thing that I use that has really reduced the inflammation that contains zinc oxide, and I've noticed in the past few days it's caused a lot of the inflammation to go down.
And lastly, the last disorder we have here is POTS and dysautonomia. So these two disorders are really interrelated. Those who have dysautonomia also display POTS symptoms, which stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is basically um, when um, you're changing postural positions and you have blood pressure fluctuations, which causes a number of different um, symptoms like dizziness, fatigue, um, aches and soreness, and things like that. And what is actually related to is our fascia, because fascial dehydration and restrictions can compress these vessels or alter baroreceptor input, and dehydrated and stiff fascia impairs our interstitial fluid dynamics and blood volume, which is directly correlated with POTS. If it's affecting our blood volume, it's definitely uh, giving off those pressure changes, which are giving us those POTS like symptoms. And fascial mechanoreceptors inform the autonomic nervous system as well. So, dysautonomia, like it says in the name, is a dysfunction of our autonomic nervous system, which our fascia is in direct contact with, and that directs effectly. So, if your fascia is not healthy, that's also affecting your nervous system on an autonomic level as well.
And for those who are not aware of what POTS is or how it goes into people that have its daily life, say if you're sitting down and you just stand up right away, um, the blood is not rushing right to your brain as fast as it should be, working against gravity. So you'll feel very lightheaded and may see at some point you may see stars, whatever it may be, but definitely being hydrated and having your electrolytes is something that can counteract it, as well as eating the right foods.
Next one. So this is kind of a repeat slide again, but I'll just sum this up real quickly. Um, Fascia is just so much more important than everyone looks at it. It's this liquid crystal semiconductor. Like I've said, it conducts all these different things like mechanical forces, bioelectrical signals, light information, and it can detect these energetic influences that affect so many different things in our body. It impacts structural integrity, movement efficiency, nutrient transport, immune regulation, how our pain is being modulated, our autonomic nervous system, the balance of it, and our body's overall capacity to be healthy and be able to be resilient and repair itself in the fastest way possible. And when our fascia is not healthy, we're not able to recover as fast. We're not able to be free of uh, these disorders like EDS, MCAS, POTS, dysautonomia, and we're really left in a vulnerable state. So, if you can do a lot of things we're recommending to you, you're gonna put your body and your fascia in a much better state. And to kind of round it up off, we have a summary here of how to keep fascia healthy and resilient, and some of the healing your way therapies that we offer that can directly help with this. So, daily habits and self care. Joseph, do you want to talk about some of these?
Some of the daily habits would be very daily movement, definitely walking, stretching, yoga, qigong, dance, multi-planar motion prevents adhesions. Um, Something like metastasis is also something you can do early in the day. Loosening your body and freeing the fascia is going to be very helpful for you. uh, self self myofascial release, foam rolling, therapy balls, gentle self massage to restore their glide, hydration and nutrition, water and electrolytes, vitamin C, which can also be in one of the serums that we had for Oral Divine. Uh, you can get it from there, and that will help with your vitamin C deficiency. Silica, glycine, proline for collagen, anti-inflammatory diet. Uh, Heat, light, and recovery, infrared exposure, sauna, and the sun, which is the main source of where you're going to get it. For structured water, contrast therapy, good sleep, and stress management, posture and ergonomics, reduce sustained loads and repetitive strain. always be aware of where your posture is. Never have be slouched and in a bad position to where your back is not supported. You always want to keep that in mind, especially if you're working at a desk job or something like that. Condition specifics for EDS, gentle supervised work, um, MCAS, trigger identification, gentle therapies, POTS, hydration, movement as tolerated.
And another thing with that point about varied daily movement, make sure you're doing something at least like every hour, I would say. Even if it's like 5 to 6 minutes, even 2 to 3 if you have some time to give um uh on every hour that you're in your working day, that you have a break to get up and go do some movement, because when we're not moving for extended amount of time, our fascia is going to automatically shorten and tighten, which is going to affect it in many ways, like I've already explained to you previously.
And a lot of these things you can do in your free time, but I know it's a lot of things, and you can do these things at the same time. But if you don't have time for certain things like the manual therapy every day or whenever it is, definitely just incorporate it and make it like a consistent thing where you're doing it every week. Be aware of these things. It might be a lot at first, but once you get in the rhythm of it, you'll get used to it and you'll be living your life a lot better.
And looking to the right of this slide, some of the healing away therapies that we have that can really help with fascial health are acupuncture, cupping, and traditional Chinese medicine. Um, this is going to really help restore glide between the layers, make it more pliable by reducing these adhesions and improve circulation and mechanotransduction. And acupuncture specifically, like I said before, plays on these piezoelectric points within the fascia that is really going to allow it to um, stop being in this contracted state so that it can open and allow for improved circulation and transduction. Traeger approach, like we've already been saying, it's this gentle rhythmic movement and manual practice that releases physical and emotional tension patterns that people may have. And a lot of some of the things that people can see from trigger approach is enhanced mobility and fascial resilience, which is helpful for people with EDS and all these other symptoms, because it's actually um, making the body and the fascia feel in a healthy, buoyant state so that inflammation can be reduced and these tension patterns don't have to be held on to anymore. So that's kind of interacting with the nervous system and not just the tissue as well. We also have red light therapy through the halo red and the infrared sauna, as well as contrast therapy. Um, Red light therapy is going to give your fascia that light energy in order to be able to make that exclusion zone or structured water formation. It's also going to help with collagen health and piezoelectric signaling because you're able to strengthen the transduction of those electrical signals because of the structured water. The sauna is going to help the um, the fascia as well because it's supplying that infrared heat as well, like I've talked about in the benefits. So you can you can get infrared therapy from infrared compressions that you can wear in the example that I gave for my ankle, but the infrared sauna is also a really healing source as well. So you're detoxing your body from a lot of different toxins that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis, but you're also healing the tissue and the fascia at the same time. And finally, Contrast therapy is gonna give you, most importantly, cold exposure, plus heat exposure to then flush all of the vessels and your tissue, so that speeding and recovery process is enhanced during uh, post like sports activities. So that one I would really recommend for um, uh, athletes, but also those who are suffering from uh, um, on suffering from things that are inhibiting them on a daily basis because of their fascia, and that's probably really good for like C fiber nerve um, disorders because you're loosening the fascia in a way that's going to affect that. Next things that we have are halotherapy, which is the salt therapy, which is going to give anti-inflammatory properties. EFT hypnotherapy or quantum healing hypnosis technique to release stress and emotion-based guarding patterns that tighten fascia, and it's going to help support pain modulation and autonomic regulation. We also have some other classes like Reiki, Qigong, and energy work, and as well as nutrition coaching and organic meal prep, which is going to build you that foundation um, from a nutrition and diet perspective. So we kind of have a lot of planes covered as far as building resilient and healthy fashion. And here, this is kind of our ending slide. Here are just a few takeaways. We've talked about fascia, how it's continuous water-rich piezoelectric connective tissue network, functions as that liquid crystal semiconductor, holds water in that organized, um, structured form, which is liquid crystalline, and dehydrated or restricted fascia contributes to pain, stiffness, poor fluid dynamics. Healthy fascia supports efficient movement, and all of the daily habits and targeted therapies that we recommend and offer at Healing Your Way um, are really good for maintaining and restoring fascial health effectively. And
Yeah,
here
here are
are
some
references
references
and
and
resources.
resources that you can check out if you want to. All the information is derived from here. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, hope you guys got to learn a little bit about fascia, all the things it actually affects rather than what you've heard before. And hopefully you're able to maybe check us out, try some of our modalities that we have to offer, and also try some practices at home that we've recommended already. So do those things, see how it works for you, and if it's looking like you need a little more guidance, don't hesitate to reach out to us at any of our socials at Healing Your Way. We're here on Rumble, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. So please check us out on all of those platforms. And if you have any questions or want to schedule an appointment, you can email us at healingyourway at gmail.com. Visit our website at healingyourway.com, or you can give us a call from our phone number, which is 215-322-6035. And thank you so much for tuning in this podcast.
yeah. Thank you guys, and I would say like three things that you guys can do at home or take away from this video that I would recommend personally. Just three things would be metastics, hydration, and gut health. Do you have three things that you would recommend for you?
I would say sun gazing in the morning and the night, especially in those morning hours during this sunrise and the evening hours during the sunset. I would say getting 10,000 steps because um, you're being super active, moving your fascia in a light and easy way. And I'd say the third one would be, let me think. I'll go with Mentastics as well. Mentastics is a really easy thing to do in between school or your workday, and you can do it pretty much any place, anytime. So those are my big three. But of course, I'm doing as much as I can.
Thank you guys for watching. We're gonna come out with next week with a new episode. You'll be notified what that topic is when it comes time. So yeah, I hope you like this video and tune into the next one.
All right, thank you guys. See you next
Thank
time.
you. See you.